What are SQL injections and why do they occur? It's an interesting question because SQL injection is one of the top 10 vulnerabilities as per OWASP, and it's been there for years and still we see it. Let me tell you a story before I get started. So this year in February, we bought this car on my birthday. Now, it's a Mercedes-Benz C-Class and there is no Benz showroom in my city. So we had to take the delivery from another city. However, when we were taking it out of showroom, there was a checkpoint. On the checkpoint, there was a camera which scans the number plate of the car. On the number plate, it scans that number and compares that number in the database, and if the car is involved in some kind of fraud, or if there is some ticket pending, or if there is some criminal charges, it will not open. However, we just bought this car 5 minutes ago. It doesn't even have a number plate. That was completely blank. Now here, I have two options. I could even wait there for a whole day, get a number plate, maybe a temporary one, and then pass through the checkpoint. Or what I did is, I wrote the special characters, which is SAGAR, single quote, or 1 equals 1. Now this is a special query. When you put this in any database, it will always return true, and the checkpoint compared this thing in the database and checkpoint said, yeah, allow this car, and it just opened and I took my car. And that's how I passed that checkpoint, by putting an SQL injection. Now let me explain how this statement bypasses any checkpoint. You see, think about a login page. How does a login page looks like? There is a username, there is a password, and there is a login button, right? That's the front end, but think about the back end. In the back end, there is a lot of code, as you can see on your screen right now. You don't need to learn coding, but try to focus on that red part of the code. That is the code which is responsible to check if your password and username is true or not. Let me make it more easier. So this is the simplified version of the code. In this code, it's asking select star from login where username equals something, password equals something. So there is the field username, there is the field password. In a login form, you fill these fields and it goes to the database and it checks, hey, is there any user in the login table which has the username of Sagar and password as Bansal? If there is, it will return a result. If there is not, it will not return a result. So the parameter here, we can choose any of these. Let's say password. This is the expected input. Password equals XYZ. But a hacker like me will not give XYZ. I will give X single quote YZ. Now, do you see what just happened there? That X was supposed to be closing with XYZ and then that single quote. However, I just added a single quote and now I have two statements. Password equals X. And then there is another statement which is Y, Z and single quote. Now once I am able to do that, I can write an exploit like select star from login where username equals Sagar and password equal X or 1 equals 1. So the system will check, okay, is there any user which is Sagar and is the password X? Or just check if 1 is equal to 1, which is always true. That is a tautology. 1 is always equal to 1, which means that the result will be true and it will return a true statement and I will be able to log in. This is the reason SQL injection occurs. When you are able to control the database, put some data and manipulate it according to your wish, that's why SQL injection becomes so deadly. Of course, we'll be talking about how to make these queries, how to write this code in later lectures, but this is the concept. That is how SQL injection works. This is the reason of SQL injections to exist. When user is able to give certain data and control the database with that data, that is where an SQL injection comes into the picture. In this lecture, we will go ahead and configure our lab which we'll be using for this course. For that, I want you to download XAmpp for Windows. If you're using Linux, then download XAmpp for Linux, or if you're using OS X, then use XAmpp for OS X. The PHP version which I would recommend should be 7.2.33. Just go ahead, download this and install. It's a simple next install, so I'll not show that right now. Once you have installed this, just go ahead and search for XAmpp control panel. That is the software which you will use to control this. Now here you have Apache, which is your web server, and MySQL, which we'll be using as a database. So go ahead and start both of these processes. Once you're done with that, you can close this window, you don't need it. And now go to your installation folder of XAmpp. In my case, that's installed in C drive. Here you will find MySQL. In MySQL, you have something called bin. And here you have all the files for MySQL. Open the command prompt or a terminal window in this location and type mysql-u space root. We want to log in as root and there is no password by default. Once you do that, you will be able to log into the database. Now here you have to create a database. So say create database and give it a name. The name should be SBVA. Once you do that, it should say OK query, one row affected. You can run show databases query to see if the database exists or not. Once this is done, you can close the terminal and now you need the web application. You can download this web application from my website, sagarbansal.com. Here you can go to SBVA, which is Sagar Bansal's vulnerable application. And you can click on download now to download this application. This is the SBVA folder. Let's open it, copy everything. Again, go to your XAmpp installation folder. This time, find a folder called httdocs, this one. By default, if there are some files in this folder, delete everything. That's all good. If this folder is empty, just go ahead and paste this. It's the same thing. You delete it, make it empty, and paste all the files which you downloaded from my website. Now once this is done, you just need to go ahead and open in your browser localhost /setup.php. Once you do that, the application will be ready to install. You don't have to do any other configuration. You can go ahead, click on this login page and try to exploit this login page. That is how you set up this environment. However, in this course, I will also be using an online application called test.php. Once you search test.php on Google, it'll say home of Acunetics R. This website is owned by Acunetics company and it's a testing website. As you can see, testphp.vulnweb.com. On this website, there is browse categories. In that, there is paintings. This sometimes gives you an error because someone else in some other country is trying to hack this website, as this is made for hacking. That's all good. Just refresh the website, it will load eventually. And this is the page which we will be exploiting in the course. So this page and SBVA application, both of the things that makes up our lab. The basics of MySQL. It's really important for you to understand basics of writing SQL queries. Of course, I will not be teaching you all the SQL language in one shot. And of course, it's not an advanced SQL class. But you need to know very basic language so that you can use them to understand the SQL injection queries. For that, I need you to log into your MySQL console. Now, the first command is show databases, which will give you all the databases that you have. Next command is create databases. And you can create any database. In this case, I'm creating a database called X. And you see, query one row affected. If you run the show database again, you will see you got a new database. Next command is to select the database. So you say use and the database name, which is use X. Now we are in the X, which is determined by this column here. Now let's see if there is any table in this. show tables for that. However, it's an empty set because there is no table. Let's create a table then. So I'm going to create a table called users. Now the reason I have these braces here is because I will be putting what kind of data will be stored in this users. The data will be, first of all, name. Now the name is the name of the column, okay? That's the name of the column where the data will be stored. But what type of data? There are certain types in SQL and it depends on the product that you're using. In my case, I'm using MariaDB implementation of SQL. So the type which I have to use is varchar. And in varchar, I have to tell it how many characters the name can be. Let's go 100 characters. So someone can type a name which will be stored in the name, which will be of varchar type, which is characters, and that will be 100 characters. Let's press enter. And you see query OK, 0 rows affected. Let me show you the tables now. You can see we got a table called users. If I select everything from users by using the select query, where star means everything, so select everything that's there in the user. Show me everything that's there in the users. You will see it says empty set. However, I can go ahead and add something here by putting insert into values. So I can use insert into table name, which is users. I can insert into this users table, values, and I need to give the values. Since I only have one column, which is name, I'll give the values here. If I'm using name, I have to use double quotes, and I can give a name like Sagar. I can press enter, and you see one row affected. If I do select star, you will see there is a column name, and there is a value which is in Sagar. Similarly, I can add more users by using the same query and saying second user as Alice, and third user as Bob. And if we try to see the users, and you can see there are 3 records which are these, which are in the column of name, which are in the table of users, which are in the database called X. I can delete some stuff, let's say the whole database, by saying drop database X. You can do the same for tables as well. Drop table and the table name. As soon as I do drop database X, you can see it says none here, and there is no database now. So if I just show you the databases, you can see we don't have X anymore. That's how you delete the database. Now there are 3 functions that I want to explain. The function of user, so I can say select user. You can see it gives us the output of user running on the server. So we are running this as root. There is another function called version, which is going to give us the version number of the database. And there is another function called database, which will throw us null because we are not using any database. However, if an application is using a database like use SBVA, now my application is using SBVA database. If I do select database, you will see that it gives the database as the result. So these 3 functions can be really helpful while gathering data in SQL injections. This is the core basic that you need to understand. There are many things like OR, AND, WHERE, order by, group by, but this is not an SQL class. Though I will be explaining all of these things in the course whenever I can, but you can always use Google as your friend. The classic injection bypass. Well, a classic injection bypass can occur at any place. For this example, I will be using an application that I developed. It's called SBVA Vulnerable Application. So you can go to this login page, and this is the place where I'll show you how to do a classic injection bypass, because this is the easiest to understand. Now it's a simple login page. If I do anything like admin, which is a wrong username and password, It will not throw any error and not even say that the username is wrong or the password is wrong. It's completely disabled with the errors. However, if I use a correct username, which is Sagar, and if I use a correct password, which is Bansal, it'll go ahead and log me in, as you can see. Now I can log out, and this is the place where I'll try to do a classic injection bypass. First of all, we need to understand how the code of this application is working. To make it easy for you, let me show you the command line, and I'm going to show you the tables here. There are two tables. We will use login table. I can see in the login table there are just three entries: ID, username, password. ID is 1, username is Sagar, password is Bansal. Now, what do you think the backend of that website is using? As PHP, the query might be select start from login, where username equals Sagar and password equals Bansal. Let me show you how. So this might be the query that the website is using. Select start from login, where username equals Sagar. Now you control this Sagar by putting it in the website over here in username field. And you also control this Bansal by putting it again in this field, which is password field. The ability to be able to control these fields, which are being directly used as an input in an SQL query, is very dangerous, and that is where you can do a classic injection bypass. Let's look at it carefully. Since I am the one who controls what I will put in the Sagar, can I not go ahead and put SAG in a double quotes space? Now, do you see what just happened? I just created SAG as the variable, and I have got the ability to write some code here, and this all is an additional thing. It was not supposed to exist, right? This was never supposed to exist. It was supposed to be and here. Well, I just break this double quotes by putting a double quotes. And that's where the classic injection bypass works. So instead of this thing, I may put Sagar and a double quotes to break, and then or 1 equals 1. Which is basically that check if username is Sagar or 1 equals 1. That is a classic injection bypass. However, there is a small problem in this. This quote is never supposed to be here, and this quote is never supposed to be here. In such a case, we may go ahead and utilize this quote by putting one quote here, one here, and one here. And similarly, we may use it by putting it one here, and one here. Now, this is a perfect SQL statement. Select start from login, where username equals Sagar or 1 equals 1, and password equals Bansal or 1 equals 1. So basically, I can go ahead and press enter, and this will work. However, even if I give it a wrong username and password, like admin this time, this will still work because the statement of where clause is being nullified by the statement of or clause in both of the cases. This password and this username doesn't matter until 1 is equal to 1, and this will always be equal to 1 because this is a tautology. So that is how you do an SQL injection bypass. There are many other ways to do that. Maybe you cannot put these double quotes in certain situations. Then how do you do that? So for an example, if you're breaking it from here and you're typing or 1 equals 1, then you may want to go ahead and remove the whole part from here by commenting it out. Comments in SQL depends on the product. In MySQL, you can use a hash sign or a minus sign, or minus minus space minus sign, or a slash asterisk sign. There are many ways to comments, and some will work, some will not work. So you have to try all of them. Let's try with hash. As soon as I press hash, all of the preceding code will be marked as a comment. So my query is select star from login where username equals Sagar or 1 equals 1. That's it. Everything else is being ignored. Now let me try to press enter and let's see if this works. And here you go. It's asking you for a semicolon because this semicolon is getting ignored. So there should be a semicolon before this comment sign. I'm going to press this, it'll work. However, a good query will be putting a semicolon over here before this SQL sign. And now you see, it works perfectly. So I can go ahead and try another type of comment like minus minus. That works as well. I may try minus minus space minus. In certain cases, minus minus doesn't work, so minus minus space minus may work. However, here you may say that, you know what, this is just getting commented out, so it doesn't matter whatever I press here. And you know, I can even write this thing, it will all get commented out. However, as I said, in certain cases, minus minus doesn't work, minus minus space minus works. So you may want to keep that in mind. It works. I may want to try with a slash asterisk. This also works. And here you can see suddenly something has changed in my database and it doesn't look correct. So it is asking me for a star slash, you know, to close the comment. It's a multi-line comment. You can comment multiple lines by putting slash asterisk and then asterisk slash to close the comment. And it'll keep asking me for it until I close it. Now I am back in my database console. So we will not close it because if we close it, then this statement will not get commented out. Hence, in certain cases, we just keep it open. And the system automatically ignores this part sometimes. This one is risky, but works. Now that you know how it's working, let's go ahead and try to bypass the website itself. So I will put in a username, double quotes, or 1 equals 1, and then a hash sign. I will copy the same thing and put it in password, though it doesn't matter, so we are just commenting out the rest of the thing. Oh, we just forgot a semicolon here. Now let's try to log in. Well, that didn't work. What just happened? Let me tell you one thing. In certain cases, this double quotes can be replaced by single quotes. It completely depends on what the developer has decided to use. So in this case, the website is not using a double quote, the website is using a single quote, which is a common practice. So the website is using these single quotes instead of double. Hence, to break out from it, I need to put a single quote here, not a double quote, and then I can press or 1 equals 1. So in the website, I will put a single quote here, not a double. And now I can press login. And you can see I was able to log in without putting any password. That is how a classic injection bypass works. Types of SQL injection. There are multiple types of SQL injections which you should be aware of, because depending upon the target and the situation, you may have to switch between one type and another. There are two major categories of SQL injections. First one is in-band SQL injection and second is inferential SQL injection. In-band SQL injection occurs when you are able to get the response from the website. It can be some data or it can be some error. So think about a database containing a lot of paintings. You're able to get those paintings depending upon your searches. You're searching for painting which has an ID of 1, which has an ID of 2, which has an ID of 3. Or you're searching that on the basis of price. Any painting which is costing less than $5,000. Any painting which is worth more than $20,000. Depending upon all of this, you'll be getting some data from the database. Those are data-based SQL injections. There you can use a technique called union-based SQL injection technique, where you will use the union command of SQL. I know it's being a little confusing. Don't worry, I'll be explaining what is union and how to do that in a whole separate lecture. But just understand, when you are able to get data from the application, you will most probably go with the union-based technique. The second one is error-based injection. In certain websites, you might have seen that when you do a search or you click on a button, it sometimes throws an error. That error is coming because there is some problem in the database. And when we are able to take advantage of the errors to inject our SQL, that is where we use the error-based injection techniques. Again, I'll have a separate lecture on this. So till now, you understood that there are two categories: in-band SQL injections and inferential SQL injections. In in-band, you have the database technique called union-based injection and the error-based technique called error-based injection. Now, coming on the inferential injection. In certain cases, you will not get the error, neither the data. There, you have to analyze the behavior of the application. Either you are logging in or you are not logging in. It's not throwing any error, that password is wrong, username is wrong. It's not giving you an error. It's just letting you log in or you're not able to log in. That's where you analyze the behavior. Am I able to log in? That is a true statement. Is it not allowing me to log in? That is a false statement. This true and false is called as Boolean injection technique. Similarly, you can observe the time taken by the server. When you request a page, it may take 5 seconds to open that whole page. In certain cases, it may take 20 seconds to open the same page. That is where you can analyze the time taken by the server to process some requests. And that is known as the time-based injection techniques. So as a recap, in inferential, we do not rely on data or errors rather than the behavior of the application. Either we will get true or false behavior, which will lead to the Boolean injection technique, or we will get some time differentiations, which will lead to time-based injection techniques. Well, there even exists a third type of technique, which is called as out-of-band injections. The reason I'm not discussing this, and we will not even be covering this in the course, is that out-of-band is a very rare situation. It is not even applicable in every SQL product. For an example, this normally is found on databases which are from a brand called Oracle. There is a special package in that called UTL_HTTP, with which we can get the response in our Netcat listener. So you can set up a Netcat listener and you can get response of your queries in your listener. It's highly rare situation and it will not fit the scope of this course. That's the reason we will ignore out of the band. But in a nutshell, out of band SQL injections are the injections which do not occur on the application, rather in the background they occur somewhere else, like a Netcat listener being hosted by you. So these are the three categories of SQL injections, and we will be covering the first two in the following lectures in detail. Union-based SQL injection. Well, a union-based SQL injection occurs when we are able to use the union operator to combine the output of two select statements. As you can see in the following screen, this first image, which has some lorem ipsum text and has an author name with a link and actually an image, is the result of the website's default code. However, I was able to create a virtual image, which you can see right here, which doesn't exist, which has a name as the database user. Instead of the description, it has the database itself, and instead of the painter name, it has the version information of the database. So I was able to create a virtual row and extract data through that. Seems complicated, right? Let me make it easy for you. I have two tables in this database. First one is login. If we see the login table, there are three columns: ID, username, password. ID is 1, username is Sagar, password is Bansal. Just one record. Now, if I use union operator and I try to combine 1, 2, 3, I will be able to combine another row which has the value 1, 2, 3. Let me show you how that works. As you can see, I just typed select star from login union select 1, 2, 3, and there is certainly another row which has the value 1, 2, 3. This will only work when you are giving the exact number of columns. If I try to give only 1 and 2, it'll throw an error because the third column will not have a value to put in. As you can see, when I try to give only select 1 and 2, it says the select statement have a different number of columns. So it should always be the same number of columns which you're putting here. Now I can go ahead and extract data. Instead of 3, I can put version. And it'll throw up the version number. Instead of 1, I can put username. And it'll throw the user. Instead of 1, I can put the database. And it'll throw the database name. Seems easy, right? So I can just copy this thing and take it to this website and run it, and it will work. Will it? Well, no, it won't. It'll throw an error. Let me show you what. You can see it says the select statement has different number of columns. You cannot expect them using 3 number of columns, right? So they might be using 4 columns or 5 columns or 6 columns. There are 2 ways to find columns. First is brute forcing, where you can try select 1. That doesn't work. Then you can try select 1 and 2. That also doesn't work, and you can then try select 1, 2, 3. That will also not work. But this method may take a lot of time. Hence, we can use an efficient method which is order by clause. Instead of putting select statement, I can put order by. And I can say order by 20. And it says unknown column 20 in order clause. This means that the number of column is less than 20. If I try 10 now, it works, which means the number of columns is either 10 or more than 10. So now I know they are in the range of 10 to 20. I can use a middle range which is 15. And that throws an error. So unknown column 15. It means our columns are in between the range of 10 and 15. Now I can put 13. It still throws an error, which means our number of columns is either 10, 11 or 12. I can put 11. That works. So either 11 or 12. Well, 12 throws an error, which means the number of columns in this application are 11, which gives us the output. So I can say now select 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Now you can see it creates a virtual table, but point to understand here is not every column is accessible. I can see 7 here, I can see 2 here, I can see 9 here. So I can extract information through column number 7, through column number 2, and through column number 9. These are 3 columns where I'm getting the information. Hence, I can put my database, let's say in column number 2, in column number 7, I can put the user, and in column number 9, I can put the version. And you can see we were successfully able to find the username, the database name, and the version. Can we take it forward? Of course, you can find any information that you like. Can you find other database? Yes. It depends on how deep you understand SQL language. So in order to find all the databases, there is a special table called information schema schemata. You can find that using this. There is a column called schema name in a table called schemata in a database called information schema. As you can see here, the first database is always information schema, which contains this table schemata, which has a table column called schema name, which has all of these entries. So if you query schema name from information schema.schemata, it will show you all the databases. Can I take this thing from here and can I put it on the website? And now you can see we got first database information schema, second database acquired, and there are no other entries, which means this specific website only has two databases, information schema and acquired. I can go on and on with multiple examples. Just to give you one more example on how to find the table names. So the query for that will be select table name from information schema.tables where table schema equals x, where x is the database which you want to find. In this case, I found the x where there is just one table called users. Can I take the same thing and put it on the website? Of course. As you can see, I just found the table names. The query I used was table name from information schema.tables where table schema equals acquired, because I wanted to find the tables in the database called acquired. And the table names are artists, cards, CTF, featured, guestbook, and so on. There is an interesting function that you can use here, which is group concat. Now, when you use this function called group concat, and in that I am asking for table name, you can see it doesn't give me a lot of results. It just groups all of them together over here, painted by artists, cats, CTF, feature, guestbook, pictures, products, users. So everything in one line, super clean stuff, and that's how you do union-based SQL injections. Error-based SQL injection. Well, an error-based SQL injection occurs when you are able to trigger certain bug in the product which leads to some errors, and you have the ability to control those errors to extract data. In the following screen, you can see that I was able to create an error which is about a duplicate entry in the group key. But in this error, you can see I was also able to extract the version number of the database name, and the user of the database. This is what an error-based SQL injection is all about. Now, as I just said, this depends on the product and a bug in that product. You can see that this version is 5.1.7. Let me show you a page. Here you can see 5.7.14. So I'm using a much older version on that website. However, this bug ID 82544, this bug is valid in all the latest versions in 2020 as well. It was published in 2016, but even after 4 years, this has not been patched. And looking at the history, I don't think so it's going to be patched soon. So the bug is about a duplicate entry in the group key while doing a group by clause. If you go ahead and scroll down, you will see that you can create this error by selecting something, counting it, concatenating the stuff with ran function, concatenating with floor function from certain table, and grouping it by some value. Sounds complicated, right? Don't worry, I'll break all of this for you. So I'm going to show you all of this in my test environment. I do have the following databases. I will use X for this specific test. There is just one table in this database called users. In this specific table, there is one column called name, and there are 3 rows: Sagar, Alice, Bob. Now this error occurs when we are able to associate a random pattern. For that, the first step is to associate a random value for each of the results. To do that, we use the ran function. As you can see, when I select this column, which is name, it returns 3 rows, but I also selected a random function which is creating 3 random values in front of these. Since it is a random function, anytime I create this again and again, it'll create all new values. You can see when I type this again, all the values have changed. If I type it once more, all the values have changed again. These values are completely generated random, and they will range from 0 to 1. The next step to trigger this bug is to control the output of the random function. But I just told you it's completely random. You can use a seed value. Here I will put a seed value like 0. Now once I put a seed value, the result will always be same. This is what comes when I run it once. This is what comes when I run it twice. This is what comes when I run it thrice. You can see all the times it's generating the same 3 values. Now the next step is to create a duplicate entry. But my question is, do you think this number has any probability to come on this place or on this place? These are billions of combinations, so the probability of this is almost impossible. For that, we will use a rounding function. Let me tell you how that works. So in the following example, I just added a round function on top of our ran function. Hence, it is rounding the values to the closest, 0 or 1. And now there is a 100% probability that our value will repeat, and there will be a duplicate entry since it will always be 0, 1, 1. It doesn't matter how many times I try this, it will always be 0, 1, 1. You can see it never changes. Now that we are able to generate random values which are still controlled by us, and we know that it's going to create 0, 1, 1, and this one is a duplicate entry of the above one, we can use the group by clause. And I can see when I use group by and a round rand, the results are not 3 but rather 2, because this Bob is also having the value of 1 and Alice is also having the value of 1, hence they have been grouped together. Finally, to trigger the bug, we just need to put having min 0. And you can see duplicate entry 1 for the key group key. That's the bug. Another approach which the official guide says, instead of putting having min, you can put count. So the count will come here. And if I remove the having thing, I will still trigger the bug because bug is coming from count. Now this may sound interesting that this count is able to create the bug, but it's almost useless when using error-based injections. The reason is that most of the times this select something from something statement is locked and we can only modify this part. Just to give you an example, it may be select name from users where name equals Sagar, and then we can modify the group by round function. You can see this is a standard database query. Select name from users where name equals, and we put this name in some search box. The problem of this is it is always going to give you one result. However, we need at least 3 results for this bug to trigger. Hence we can put or 1 equal 1 to nullify this where statement. So think about it. Select name from users where name equals Sagar or 1 equal 1, which is always true. Hence it will select all the names, giving the whole table. As you can see, it dumps the whole table. So now we can put our group by rand having min equals 0. And this triggers the bug. And this is the final output which we want as our payload. So I can copy this. I can go on this website, and you can see it normally takes a parameter called cat. When it gives a parameter called cat, it comes up with all these images. If I give a parameter of cat equals 2, you can see it comes up with only one result. So let me try to bypass this one. Cat equals 2. Since we already have or 1 equal 1, this will bypass the situation of cat, and it will give us all the rows in the table, and it will group them by rand function having min equals 0. I'll put a comment here to ignore the other stuff. And you can see we get the error. Duplicate entry 1 key group key. This 1 is the result of our duplicate entry, and it's the result of our rand function, which is over here. So can we use it to extract data? Of course. Let me show you that how we can do it. Now you can see what I just did is I did a select name round rand, and then I did a concat version round rand. So the output of round rand is 0 1 1, which you can see over here 0 1 1, and I concatenated this with the version of the application. Hence you can see, since the version is constant and round rand is changing, we still have a perfect duplicate copy of 2 and 3. These are perfect duplicates because the version is constant and this part is changing. Hence, in the same way, we can concatenate whatever we want and we can extract data. A good example here will be you can see we got the database version, then we got X, which is the database name, as you can see over here. Then we got root at the localhost, which is the user. We can even put spaces in between. And this will just make it easier for us to identify that this is one thing, this is second, and this is third, and this is finally the rand. So I can just take this whole concatenation string here and put it instead of this round rand function. And we got the version number, the database name, and the user at the localhost. That is how error-based SQL injection works, and this is how we exfiltrate data through error-based SQL injections.